a hero of nations who was responsible for the great cellular and internet technology. Who lived 46-year life in this world, but he gave a lot more than we can think. Today our working capability depends on technology. Technology makes our lives more optimistic and secure. Hello viewers, I'm Jason Edward. Welcome back to Tea Time Story. Today we brought up a true story of a person who contributed his efforts to make a world better place. Have a seat with your own comfort zone with a cup of tea and enjoy the story. John Fitzgerald Kennedy, known as J.F. Kennedy, elected in 1960 as the 35th President of the United States of America. In the age of 43-year-old John F. Kennedy became one of the youngest U.S. presidents, as well as the first Roman Catholic. He was born on May 29, 1917, in Brookline, Massachusetts. John F. Kennedy, known as Jack, was the second of 9 children. His parents, Joseph and Rose Kennedy, were members of 2 of Boston's most prominent Irish Catholic political families. Despite persistent health problems throughout his childhood and teenage years, he would later be diagnosed with a rare endocrine disorder called Addison's disease. Jack led a privileged youth, attending private schools such as Canterbury and Choate and spending summers in Hyannisport on Cape Cod. Joe Kennedy, father of J.F. Kennedy, a hugely successful businessman and an early supporter of Franklin D. Roosevelt, was appointed chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission in 1934 and in 1937 was named U.S. ambassador to Great Britain. As a student at Harvard University, Jack traveled in Europe as his father's secretary. His senior thesis about British's unpreparedness for war was later published as an acclaimed book. Jack joined the U.S. Navy in 1941 and 2 years later was sent to the South Pacific, where he was given command of a patrol torpedo boat. In August 1943, a Japanese destroyer struck the craft, PT-109, in the Solomon Islands. Kennedy helped some of his Maroon crew back to safety, and was awarded the Navy and Marine Corps Medal for heroism. His older brother, Joe Jr., was not so fortunate. He was killed in August 1944 when his Navy airplane exploded on a secret mission against a German rocket launching site. Grieving Joe Sr. told Jack it was his duty to fulfill the destiny once intended for Joe Jr. to become the first Catholic president of the United States of America. Abandoning plans to be a journalist, Jack left the Navy by the end of 1944. Less than a year later, he was back in Boston preparing for a run for Congress in 1946. As a moderately conservative Democrat, and backed by his father's fortune, Jack won his party's nomination handily and carried the mostly working-class 11th District by nearly 3-1 over his Republican opponent in the general election. He entered the 80th Congress in January 1947, at the age of 29, and immediately attracted attention, as well as some criticism from older members of the Washington establishment, for his youthful appearance and relaxed, informal style. J.F. Kennedy's big contribution to this world is that he gave permission for Apollo space program. On July 20, 1969, the Apollo 11 astronauts left this footstep on the moon, fulfilling Kennedy's pledge of May 1961, to land a manned spacecraft on the moon, before this decade out. The actual facts, however, are quite different. Many Americans wanted some sort of space program. After the success of Apollo 11, there was considerable public argument over whether the project had been worth the expense. Because of Apollo space program today we have cellular and internet technology. J.F. Kennedy deserves the credit of establishing the unique technologies. American government-approved budget of $25 billion for the mission. Since 1969 the budget of NASA has fallen drastically. Consistently throughout the 1960s a majority of Americans did not believe Apollo was worth the cost, with the one exception to this, a poll taken at the time of the Apollo 11 lunar landing in July 1969. And consistently throughout the decade 45 to 60% of Americans believed that the government was spending too much on space, indicative of a lack of commitment to the space program agenda. By selling the cellular technology they earned back thousands of billion dollars. JF Kennedy's biggest achievement was Apollo mission, and he will be remembered in the minds of loyal nations. On November 22, 1963, the president and his wife landed in Dallas. He had spoken in San Antonio, Austin and Fort Worth the day before. From the airfield, the party then traveled in a motorcade to the Dallas Trade Mart, the site of Jack's next speaking engagement. Shortly after 12:30 p.m., as the motorcade was passing through downtown Dallas, shots rang out. Kennedy was struck twice, in the neck and head, and was pronounced dead shortly after arriving at a nearby hospital. 24-year-old Lee Harvey Oswald, known to have communist sympathies, was arrested for the killing but was shot and fatally wounded 2 days later by local nightclub owner Jack Ruby while being led to jail. A presidential commission led by Chief Justice Earl Warren concluded that Oswald had acted alone, but speculation and debate over the assassination has persisted. Death of JF Kennedy was a big loss of great leadership not only in America, but also all over the world. Honest people will always remember JF Kennedy leadership efforts towards helping nations.